For me, the beautiful and interesting task to keep you on board the last 20 minutes. To start right away, my name is Antal Posthumus from the National Archives of the Netherlands, and I'm a record-keeping / policy advisor on digital archiving there. And one of my roles was published as a co-author of a guideline on archiving government websites. And at the moment, one of my roles is also a project team member on the implementation project of giving access to management of archived government websites. But everything you'll hear from me today is a result of a team effort, of course. I'll click here for a short program. It's a short program, and the next up is a short sketch of our role, two roles actually. Knowledge center before transfer of information, and a official archive for the Dutch central government laid down our duty laid down by law in the Public Records Act to secure the future of government record. And by the same law, government organizations in the Netherlands, ministries and agencies, are responsible for keeping the records and information they manage in what we call sustainable, accessible state. And here you also have a linkage with our role as a knowledge center, because one of those roles is providing advice and issuing guidelines on how to keep these records and information in a sustainable, accessible state by government agencies. And in the specific domain of web archiving, our role isn't one of creating a collection of archive websites by selecting and harvesting them ourselves. And I think that's a key difference with a lot of other national archives and national libraries and other national and international heritage institutions, as we have already seen today, of course. Most of them form these collections based on a organization or theme or event-specific selection policy, and have either outsourced the harvesting process or do it in-house, which we don't, as you will see later on. So we had to create some basic conditions for our project implementation, of which a guideline which we've issued in 2018 was a very important part. Here you see the knowledge center role, but it's also a form of, for us, of operating in the front line, having sort of an influence on the output of the archival process via this guideline. Another important aspect of the conditions for the implementation project was also surveying our designated communities and conducting interviews with them to get a clear idea of what our end users will expect when using the archive websites, which we will provide them to them through electronic finding aids. And also a specific group we've also conducted interviews with researchers and how they want to approach the data. But why this guideline? I actually want to stress only the first point, because websites are a primary source of communication for governmental agencies. We all know that for quite some time now, but you cannot stress this too often. But there was also a political dimension to this, because we got a assignment commissioned by our Minister of Education, Science and Culture, of which we are a ministerial agency. And the government organizations, on their part, got also a political assignment commissioned to the Chief Information Officer of the Dutch central government to actually start archiving the government information that is published through websites. And to be sure, this is the information we're actually talking about. This is the City of Amsterdam, the homepage, offering information on public services they offer and the conditions under which you can apply for these services as a citizen. Same example, but then for Warsaw, our hosting city of today. Same public services, same or similar conditions on which you can apply for these. And citizens base their decisions and actions in dealing with the government on this information. And this information changes regularly, so it's really important that this information remains accessible for the government organization in question, but also for the citizen in case of any dispute or any other situation. Here's another example of the Dutch central government. It's the official viewpoint of the state of the Netherlands on the MH17 Downing above Ukraine by Russia in 2014. And this is the official channel through which this official standpoint was communicated. So anyone present here can see the importance of why this information for the short term, for journalists and historians, but also in the long run, in 15 years' time, needs to be accessible. But moreover, you want to be sure that researchers know that this information was actually published by the Dutch government and actually was not altered illegally or accidentally. There's a lot of important things in the guideline, and here you have a few. The thing I like to stress today, because it's about the project implementation, and this is for creating the conditions, because this guideline was also used as a list of requirements in a public European tender this year, actually, which was also awarded this year, with the objective of this tender to create a central harvesting platform for the Dutch central government with the aim of harvesting circa 1,500 government websites. It was awarded to a company called GW Cross Media, also known as archiefweb.eu. And here you actually have a clear example of how we are trying and are able to influence the archival output for archiving governmental websites. So the project implementation, it's nice that government organizations start harvesting, but we have to be ready to receive this material in the end when they are transferred to us for permanent retention. So in 2019 we started a project implementation. It was executed by a multidisciplinary team consisting of a preservation officer, a record-keeping advisor, which was me, an information analyst, did I say that already, a developer of the eDepot, a collection manager, and the product owner of our organization's website, and of course a project lead in the steering committee. And we had a broad scope. There are a lot of aspects, as we already saw today. I'd like to stress the fourth one, that the baseline of our implementation project is the current deployment of the workflows as they are now, and anything that we'll find that differs or misses when ingesting archive websites, that we will develop or will add to this current deployment. This is a high-level architecture overview. On the left, our eDepot, the collection management system, two components that manage metadata and presentation versions, which they push, amongst other things, to our websites and our end users. And here you see something that differs from this general, what we call our Born Digital chain. Challenges and results that we've encountered. I've given this presentation a month ago also. I probably have to kill some of my darlings to stress some other points today. So I'll do a quick run through of these. Metadata, our national metadata schema did suffice to provide enough administrative, descriptive and technical data to present a meaningful finding aid on our website. A very specific topic, non-identification of work GZ files. The GZ extension stands for gzip, which is a commonly used lossless compression format for work files. But if it wasn't identified by our Droid tool in our eDepot, nor was it identified by Droid in the standalone version, and that is difficult. That means a difficulty because of based on the identification of a file format, our eDepot runs some tasks. So if we don't have the file format, then the eDepot won't be able to start a preservation workflow in the preservation tool or a certain viewer for a certain file format. So we got in touch with the OPF, and of course we've escalated this with the supplier of our eDepot software, which also led to another finding that we don't have a built-in work validation tool in our eDepot. Because we're on the receiving end of things and don't create work files ourselves, we ask ourselves the question: what is a valid work file? When is it well formed? And moreover, if it isn't, what are the effects on later on in our processes? So we sidestepped a bit there from our project and actually ran some tools and reviewed the output of work validation tools. I guess it was JWAT, WorkCat, and WorkIO. And we actually created an information sheet on the output and the use of these tools. Then the viewing, the access part of it. We have a Open Wayback viewer in our eDepot. It's off the shelf, but that wasn't a full configuration. We learned so. And in the coming updates of our eDepot software, it will not be available as of yet. So we also tested a full configuration of Open Wayback, Solid Wayback, and Python Wayback, and actually we chose to install Python Wayback also because of the desk research that showed us that there's a transformation from Open Wayback to Python Wayback within the IAPC community. But our eDepot didn't allow an external viewer to be connected to it, so it's Python Wayback loose from the eDepot in our infrastructure, which leads to copying data from the eDepot to Python Wayback to have Python Wayback index the work files and the content in the work files. So those we consider as presentation copies, and in the eDepot as master data. Search options. Which search options shall we present to our end users? At the moment, we just provide search through metadata only, and we'll develop a full text search as part of our general full text function for all our born digital material in our eDepot. So that's a thing in the future. And here you see some other aspects, and there are many, many more, as we've already heard today. We offer raw harvest data, all works on our open data platform. And the two things I'd like to share some insights on with you are the last ones, non-harvestable dynamic content. In our guideline, we ask our producers to registrate which web pages contain content that wasn't harvested, mostly the dynamic content, the interactive drop-down menus, but also visual data representations and AV content. We know this is a lot of work, and we ask a lot from our producers, but the last 3 to 4 months, we're getting figures from these from our producers that they had. They were checking like 330 websites from 2 ministries manually, only on this aspect of non-harvested dynamic content, and it took them 10 persons, 3 to 4 months for 330 websites to check this manually. Considering that the central harvesting platform will harvest circa 1,500 websites, we have to multiply this impact with 5. So if this will be the way we'll proceed, isn't really certain. But this is the step we've taken, and now we're getting the concrete figures about the impact of such a measure. And to end with the last point, it's actually down there at the podium. It's the legal aspects of things. One thing is that was developed is a legal review tool, a document consisting of questions and informations as part of the assignment that was commissioned to the Chief Information Officer of the central government. it's sort of a self-assessment tool for government organizations to ask questions about legally sensitive information that is found on their websites, and if they find it, they can take measures appropriate accordingly. You see here AVG, but that's the Dutch equivalent of the GDPR legislation. That is a tool that was developed by government organizations, or actually a legal consultancy firm, but for government organizations. But at the moment, we're also in a transfer of websites of a specific government organization, and they make use of a lot of photo material from our Dutch National Press Agency. You can compare that to AP, Reuters, or I think it's called PAP here in Poland, and they have the copyright of these photos. And we've entered into dialogue with the government organization, the press agency, on which risks do we see if we, after transfer, publish this information again. And because of that, we don't. That Google doesn't index our content, so also Google won't index these websites that are being transferred and given access to, and that Google also does not index these photos. This National Press Agency doesn't see a lot of risk that these photos will be reused by users in publications of their own. So we have one instance, but this, of course, we document and formalize these agreements, but of course we put them to a higher level and apply them for all coming transfers and all other government organizations. So that's just one supplier of this material. There's also a lot of Shutterstock images on this website, and that's a whole different ball game, because maybe they ask for a financial compensation after transferring and publishing these websites. We're still into a dialogue with them, and if the conclusion will be yes, we want to be compensated in any way, then that would be a reason for us not to make publicly accessible this material, and maybe only on the premises on a standalone machine. But that's something that we have to find out in the nearby future, because the dialogue is still going on. So those were the aspects I wanted to share some insights on with you today. This is a inspiration for us for our minimal viable product that we want to deliver with the project for end users. This is by GW Cross Media, archiefweb.eu. And here you see a homepage of the city of Utrecht, where I live. It comes from a work file, but they have created on a left column a calendar in which you can click on for instances of this archived website. And you see also a search bar. And this is the minimum kind of usability we will also want to offer to our end users when we're ready with our project. And here you see a beta version of a website of a victim support organization within our own website, with a small calendar. And above you also see the path of how it's registered in the electronic finding aid. And yeah, this is what we're working on and what we have realized yet. And with this, no, there were some lessons learned, some general lessons learned, but the most important one, I think, for National Archives is seize your new role as archival institutions. Operate in the forefront with advising, providing guidelines. You learn a lot in the contact with the government organizations, but also it's a means of influencing the archival process and the output of the archival process. In other words, the quality of the material we'll receive. And that's it for now for me. Thank you for your attention.
www, for example, does it linked with archives which is produced by some kind of institutions? If I understand well this question.
Well, as with other countries, there is quite a clear separation between our National Library and National Archive. So there's no linkage there.
No, this kind of link.
Not on the archive level, but we are interacting with them and contacting them and communicating, and so that's definitely there. And for now, because the state of where we're at the moment, we don't have the Memento protocol installed or something, so we're not findable for not yet. So. And because it's an implementation project, and because a central harvesting platform, the tender was just awarded this year, we're not yet live, but in the coming year will probably be. And then our repository, maybe next year or maybe later, it's also to be decided, our repository will be filled with archive websites. So, yeah.
If I understand well this question, it's impossible. That's the simple answer.
Okay, so our director, which is the highest specialist at this, one of the highest, let it be, told us that it's just impossible to link this kind of things. Czyli, szanowni państwo, no, generalnie nie można tego zrobić, jeżeli to pytanie, które przetłumaczyliśmy, zostało dobrze przez nas przetłumaczone, to jeszcze dodatkowo komplikację stanowi fakt, że po prostu to jest niemożliwe ze względu na... Ani potrzebne, a też niemożliwe, pan powiedział, ze względu na co? Bo ze względu na to, że systemy na to nie pozwalają, czy...
Tak, dwie różne rzeczy. No, mówimy o archiwizacji internetu i mówimy o archiwizacji naturalnych dokumentów elektronicznych.
Okej, czyli to są dwie zupełnie odseparowane systemowo rzeczy. Stąd twoja odpowiedź, że po prostu że tego nie robicie, no bo się tego nie robi, tak? Bardzo proszę.
Just a small comment.
Not a question, just a comment. Of course, this is this kind of forum.
Memento protocol is useful to offer a common retrieval of the archives by certain points, but it does not mean, and it really does not mean that these collections are integrated in any sense, as the general director said. It can be a major goal to make the collections retrievable in some sense via the Memento protocol, and I want to ask your opinion that it can be a way to build bridges among the archives in the web archives, in the archives, and in the libraries. However, I know that the whole notions and the aspects are different. And my other question is that what kind of plans you have for the next 1 or 2 years you want to achieve?
To start with the last question, there will be a pilot project with this central harvesting platform that when they actually offer websites for ingest in our processes and see what actually happens. We've already are discussing things with them, and they're already tweaking and installing things from the guideline. They're forming web archives according to our guideline. So, but in the end, there are always iterations, or there are always findings. There are always things you have to amend. But that's for the coming year. They have started harvesting already. I think 3 or 4 organizations now. And that will only become more. And your first question, could you repeat a bit in short again?
what's your opinion that Memento protocol somehow can help to build bridges among the library archives and web archives in the archives? I know that the collection guidelines are totally different, but with a common red cable, even if it can be used only on site in the library, on the archive, it can be more useful to the users that can retrieve content.
Yeah, I actually think it's a very nice, beautiful technical solution to overcome these differences. By linking all these collections without any politics that's going on there. So yes, it's a very nice way. Yeah.
A zatem jeszcze jedno pytanie od naszego widza. Jakiego narzędzia używacie do gromadzenia witryn internetowych?
The central hosting platform, GW Cross Media, does use Heritrix, and for the view I just showed you, they use Open Wayback. They haven't started the transition to Private Wayback, but that's what they're planning to do. And I don't know their business model in depth, but I guess they do certain things. They deploy all kinds of tools that are available to create the quality of the archived websites. And there's also the thing that they go in contact, in dialogue with a owner of a website when they see during quality control that some content wasn't harvested. Then they see for an extra amount of money, an extra amount of things they can make the quality better of this website. So there's a lot of things possible, but they're going to cost. Yeah, that's actually my answer. Yes.
I jeszcze jedno pytanie z sali.
I just wanted to ask, from the perspective of the state, or in your case, the National Archives, to what extent did you cooperate with other institutions, such as libraries? Was there any kind of cooperation? Because you mentioned, basically, there was some talking between the institutions, but was there any deeper cooperation?
No, to be honest, no, because we have totally such different policies when approaching collection management and the forming of collections. We're actually a legal depot, so to speak, for government records, and this National Library doesn't have this legal duty and this legal responsibility. And we're on the receiving end of things with websites, but also on the receiving end of government records when they have to be transferred to us for permanent retention after 20 years. But nevertheless, there are networks for digital heritage institutions in the Netherlands, and that's where we'll find each other, and that's where we'll think together about these concepts and approaches and new tools and such. But in our workflows and questions that arise in the workflows, or ingesting, giving access, and managing, no, there's not really close contact. No.
Okay, thank you.